Well, in Borno State, terrorists of the Islamic State of West Africa province, Iswap, or Iswap, some people will call it, have killed at least 23 farmers and fishermen in the village of Malam Karanti near Baga in the Kukawa Local Government Area of Borno State. The attack reportedly took place on Thursday on Thursday morning in Malam Karanti, a village 5 kilometers from Baga. Malam Karanti is an Iswap enclave where civilians often farm and fish despite risks. The terrorists were said to have gathered farmers and fishermen near the village and killed 23 of them. An elderly man was spared, who later alerted the community. The terrorists assembled people in Malam Karanti and killed them. Most of the victims were being farmers, the source told newsmen. Residents trying to recover bodies of those killed were reportedly forced to retreat after ISWAP launched another attack. Meanwhile, the Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, had assured residents of the state and the northeast that the military was frantically working to deal with the terrorists and flush them out of their enclaves to end the crisis. General Musa reiterated that the military was collaborating with friendly countries such as Russia, France, among others, to deploy sophisticated weapons that could bring the war quickly to an end. This is not an underestimated war, for crying out loud, because what else do you call this? Well, let's hear from you, Chimene.
First of all, this Borno thing has really been a very big problem in the country, that the country is just overlooking most of it. I believe the country has something to do pertaining this Borno State issue of this farmer stuff. Because I believe if the country is really ready for them to stop this particular problem, it will stop. Because it's really a long-term issue for a very long time now, that up to this dispensation, people are still talking about insecurity in Borno State up to now. So I feel the country is not yet ready to stop this issue, because Borno has long suffered for this. Right from the time of Good Luck to Buhari down to Tinubu's government, they've been having this issue of killing problems in Borno State, kidnapping and other stuff. So I think it's time for the government to stand up and fight to ensure that these issues happening in Borno State will have to stop. I think they have to stand up, because I believe that as a country, for us to grow, we have to at least help our own cities, our own states that are having challenges like this, because up till now, Borno is still fighting for insecurity in the country, and something alarming about. So I believe the country has to sit up and see how to help stop this issue in Borno State.
Okay. Let's recall that the president has actually had a meeting with the security chiefs and the National Assembly over the city of insecurity in the country, especially the ones happening in the northeast. These individuals are fish farmers and bean farmers, vulnerable citizens. Imagine the situation, retrieving your loved one and then another attack. Those are things we see in movies, for crying out loud. Imagine it's happening just where close to us in reality. It's not something that anybody will want to clap over or rejoice over. And okay, just like Chimene stated, what do you think? Do you think measures have actually been put in place into reducing or putting a stop to this whole insurgents happening in the country?
Well, I'll begin by saying that food security is national security, and I've said it many times. If you look at the threats and the security issues that surface towards the farmers, it's not a coincidence. It is actually targeted at crippling our food security in Nigeria. And if you look at the sub-Saharan Africa, North Africa, you look at the threat posed by small arms and light weapons, because these terrorists have the weapons they use to go and commit all these crimes. So I believe we can do more. There's a lot more that can still be done.
So it's not like things haven't been done.
Yeah, the security agencies are trying their best, but it is not just a national approach. You have to look at it from the region. You have to look at it from within sub-Saharan Africa. You have to look at the flow of light, small weapons and light weapons. I recently organized the training for African youths on small and light weapons and impact on African country security, and it was a very powerful training. And we discovered that many African countries, especially conflict countries that are facing all kinds of security threats, one of the things we've come to realize is that this issue of small arms and light weapons, because when you look at the transfer of these small arms and light weapons into the hands of these terrorist groups, it helps to fuel and engineer their criminal terror activities. Now, in the case of Borno State, Nigeria shares border with the Republic of Chad, with Niger, with Cameroon, with Benin Republic, and all that. And if you look at our land borders, it is very widespread. We don't have sufficient manpower to man these borders. And then it's not just manning the borders with human personnel and human resources. You can also put in technology. So one of the ways we can address this continuous cycle of violence and terrorism that is affecting our agricultural sector, threatening our food security, threatening lives, threatening transportation, threatening the survival of the people there, is to ensure that we block the channels of the flow of small arms and light weapons, especially countries like Libya and all these North African countries that have had conflicts and crises, and then so many weapons, much of these weapons flowing into West Africa, and then that will require collaboration between Nigeria. I believe they had something like that.
So you're saying the border could be porous. That's another reason
exactly
why this thing is happening. I don't know if you heard of situation of the Nigerian police helicopter. There was this allegation that they were really giving down or using their helicopter to deliver arms to the terrorists in Kogi State, and they denied the allegation that they were actually fighting insurgents and all of that. I am not saying the Nigerian police force is actually whatever working with them, because I do not have evidence over that. But let's look at the other part, because how do these individuals get this weapons? Some of them actually use airstrikes to do. I heard some of them now use drones and some sophisticated weapons, and we're sure that most of them do not pass through the borders. So is that closing down most of these borders, would that also aid or reduce this issue like you mentioned?
Well, we don't necessarily need to close down the borders. We just we need to have the right security check, like manning our borders. You can put in technology, you can put in trained professionals to man these borders. Yes, you can have internal collaborators fueling insecurity, but you cannot fail to recognize that there are also external funding. Terrorism, most of these terrorist groups, they are not acting alone. They have trainings, they have funding, they have some backup from both internal and external sources. And so for them to carry out such continuous attacks in such magnitude over the years, you know, it's not rocket science. They have gone through some forms of trainings and all that. And who is giving them these arms? So the security agencies need to investigate where are funding them, where are they getting these arms, and then these vulnerable communities, they're always at the receiving end because there's loss of life. And now with these people that have been killed, do you think the villagers want to go back to farm? Because they are scared of their life. Now what will happen to this food supply chain? There will be disruption in the supply of food, and then it will increase poverty, it will increase hunger, it will increase malnutrition, it will increase a lot of crimes, because there's a saying that a hungry man is an angry man. So when people are hungry, it fuels them into criminality.
Just like you referred to the police situation of
transfer
of aggression.
Exactly, transfer of aggression built up. Most of them, they're actually good people.
Okay.
But the fact is that a lot of them are you know, there's a whole lot of pressure on them, so their mental health is not properly looked after, and then they have to meet up and all that. So you see, if you prioritize their welfare and put in proper checks and balances, you will minimize the level of corruption within the police force.
Okay, quickly I want to hear from you, Chimele. There's been call for self-defense. like he mentioned, of their vulnerability and all of that. And the Borno State, like you mentioned, there has been continuous issue of terrorism and killings going on there. And we recall also that it's also one of the states that was affected, that most of the troops were abducted. Some of them were actually killed during that the attack that happened. Let's look at civilians. Do you think that it's necessary for most of them to be empowered with weapons or whatever, not weapons, like for self-defense? Do you think it's a necessity for them to get to that point where they have to be self-defensive, since they're not really, they cannot on their own get to, cater for themselves?
Okay.
Without weapon. I don't know if you understand. I'm not confusing you on that aspect.
No, you're not. There was a news I heard recently, or I think it was recently, where a particular man killed an herdsman and he was sued to court. I don't know if you heard that news. Imagine such situation. Someone is trying to defend himself from a killer, and the country is sentencing such person to the prison and all the stuff. So what faith does the other people have to defend themselves, even because most of these people, because when you give these people the license to defend themselves, most times they may also do it to innocent people and claim that these people are herdsmen. So it's something that the country has to look into, because even if you give them the license, okay, defend yourself when necessary, they might end up killing the innocent people amongst them. Because even as much as they are farmers, they still have people who are bad amongst them and the evil ones amongst them. So what if the bad eggs start affecting the innocent people?
So you're not...
I totally disagree
okay.
with them defending themselves, because such measures could cause a lot of problem where it cannot be controlled by the country anymore. Because imagine tomorrow you're hearing someone is being killed in the farm, tomorrow you're being hearing a lot of killing is happening. They might end up start having internal wars amongst themselves, because somebody might be envying the next person, and the next person might use this opportunity to destroy the next person. So it's going to be something that the country cannot manage. So I believe this is not a welcome idea.
If I'm not mistaken, I'm trying to recall the particular state governor that closed down most of the IDP camp. Could be Zamfara, one of the states. Like he said, most of them will be displaced from their homes now. And where else would they run to aside the IDP camp? So in that aspect, while they're still waiting for the government troops to come to their aid, well, what's the possibility of their safety? Where are they running to? Because like you stated about the food hunger, the whole food security and all of that, it's literally coming down to us, because Borno State is one of the states in the northeast that produce most of these goods. These farm goods that we consume. So what's the possibility of their safety? I'm just referring to this issue of their IDP camp situation.
Well, what I would say is that, first of all, I would say my own view. I think I would not say they should have a kind of self-defense, because let's address that before going to the security of the people. But you can have community policing. I believe we don't have enough manpower to cater for over 200 million people. So the military cannot send all their soldiers to just one village when you are taking care of over 200 million people. And look at a lot of security flashpoints across the country that needs urgent attention. So you can't deploy all the resources to one region when you have a lot of national security threats. But if you have a local vigilante in collaboration with the security agencies that are trained and given license by the security authorities and the government, working in partnership with the government and security agencies, they can serve as the local structure in place, like first responders.
Okay, you're referring to the self-defense aspect.
Yes. Now, as regards the other question of when in times of crisis, where do these people go to? Now, they need the government should not sit back and wait for crisis. Now, in security planning, you don't wait for crisis to happen. You plan. You have carried out a study of past security threats to the people. You don't sit back and wait for another security threat or another security crisis. Now, you become proactive. You put in proactiveness in your security planning to ensure that you minimize security threats. So what do? You have carried out a study. You have looked at this reoccurring, repeated killings. Let's use Borno State as a case study. You don't need to wait for another killings of farmers or fishermen or those who are in their homes. You build what we call emergency centers. It's places where, I don't want to call it IDP, because this IDP, it has a lot of psychological effects on the people too. Internally displaced persons. Most of them are psychologically and mentally displaced because they have become stereotyped. They have been in a place and, society treat them like third-class citizens and, people that are waiting for handouts. And secondly, too, the practice of just putting people in an IDP camp and sharing rice and sharing something, you call it palliative, is not enough. What are the services? What are you putting in place to help these people? These people have gone through violence. I volunteer for an IDP camp. So I've been there. I've been on the field. I've practically seen what these people are going through. A lot of them, like when I was volunteering in one of the IDP camps in the Northeast, I met a young boy that all his family members were killed. They were all killed by herdsmen. He witnessed it. And so if he hears a sound, just a sound, you see how he reacts. He's living in fear. Like, such a person requires, mental health support, psychological support. That such a person feels that vacuum. There is need for love and belonging and care. So you don't just take people and there is a crisis, you take them to an IDP camp and then you just share palliative. Put in place medical services, health services, mental health services, support them, orientate. There should be some orientation. There should be some, sense of belonging, and then you reintegrate them to the society and ensure that you are reintegrating them to a place that is safe, that is secured. So for crisis situation, you build emergency centers in strategic locations that are safe, that these people can easily access, right? So when there is a crisis, you don't pray for crisis, you don't wait for crisis to happen, you don't expect crisis to happen. But in the kind of dynamic situation that we are faced with, anything can happen, crisis can happen. So it is best you are prepared for a crisis than you wait for a crisis to prepare you. The approach of just waiting until there is a crisis and then we start using the reactive approach is not sustainable. It's not going to really address the situation. Okay. So put in place that infrastructure, looking at the past scenarios, the past case studies that have happened. It is going to help.
All right.